what can I do that will help me in this life and the next, right? And that's the most important thing. I can see somebody taking the Shahada, and the Imam has just said the Shahada, they've just taken the Shahada, everybody's happy, the Imam gives them a hug, and everybody else gives them a hug. And then he's presented with this whole load of books. And I'm thinking in my head, how long is it going to take him to go and pray? How long is it going to take him to learn how to pray? And I thought, if I can invent or develop something that would help this person pray from the day they take the Shahada, you might show somebody and be like, oh, I've got this product. And they might look at it and be like, oh, yeah, but I'll never buy it. But they will buy it. They'll buy it because they saw their friend buying it and they saw their friend using it. And then they realize, actually, it's a great product and I actually want it. The Muslim community were longing for something that would help their children not just learn Salah, because this is what I always say to people. Although it'll teach them how to do Salah, it'll invite them to Salah. It'll attract them to Salah.
Where did this product idea come from?
It came out of nowhere. Like literally, like I was praying one day and my son was young and he was joining me in the prayer, and
life is one big road with a lot of signs and more signs. You gotta make up your mind to face reality all the time. No.
Welcome again to the Journeys podcast. Today we have a really fantastic guest joining us, our brother Kamal Ali from Wales, who is the inventor of the Salah Mat, as well as other inventions as well that he has designed himself. So welcome, brother. Assalamu alaikum. How are you?
Wa alaikum salam, brother. Alhamdulillah, I'm good. And yourself?
Alhamdulillah, I'm very good today. So let's jump straight into it. You know, we've tried to do this podcast numerous times. And so I think this is about the third or the fourth time we're finally getting on and meeting each other. So it's good. Alhamdulillah. Basically, I'd like to start by just, if you could tell us a little bit about your upbringing. I believe you grew up in Wales. Maybe just tell us a bit about your life there and how maybe you began your path on towards product design and love of entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I mean, thank you so much for having me on as your guest, and alhamdulillah, we're finally doing this. So I was born in Bangladesh, and I was a little baby when we came to the UK, and we lived in London for the first 8 years of my life. But I have a very little memory of my time in London. A very little memory. I mean, it's small glimpses. My memory really started from when we moved to Wales. I remember the day very clearly. I remember moving into our new home, the people around us. I remember going into the primary school. And I remember walking straight into my classroom and walking straight up to who is now still my best friend. You know, he's still one of my best friends, all the way from back then. It's really strange how that happened, alhamdulillah. And creativity really comes from my mother. My mum used to sew when we moved to the UK. And she was always very creative and very hands-on, putting things together. And I think that's where the love of kind of making things came from.
Sure. I think it's amazing, isn't it? I'm sure you can relate as a parent as well, that sometimes you can really see maybe yourself or your spouse in your children, and sometimes when you're growing up as a child, you don't really, that's not really at the forefront of your conscious, but then you can see like, oh, I really got this, element of my life from my mom, and oh, that was what my mom was talking about when I was small, but maybe when we're smaller we don't really relate to.
No, I agree with you 100%.
Was there a specific reason why you moved from London to Wales? What do you know anything behind that, or was it just,
Yeah, where we lived in London, it was really rough. It was a
Yeah.
really rough area. We lived in Kilburn, and
Okay.
like I said, I don't have a lot of memory, but the one memory I do have is one of my relatives, an uncle. He went to the shops, and he was a bit flashy. He had some jewelry on him,
Yeah.
and he was attacked. I remember that day he was attacked. He came back and was like, "I've just been attacked." I had and. So it wasn't like, yeah, I feel like my parents sheltered me. They kept me away from kind of seeing that kind of side of London. But at times it did come up. And
It's funny you say that, brother. Sorry to cut you there, but
yeah, yeah.
my wife actually, her family, they're originally from Somalia, and they first, when they moved to the UK, they had a similar experience. They moved to London, and I think their mother, for whatever reason, didn't like. Well, actually, they originally were in Holland, then they moved to London when they moved to the UK. And eventually they moved to Leicester because I think similar reasons. I think, a lot of people, when they first come to England, London is what they know, is what they hear of around the world. And then maybe once you get there, the reality is that it's not as pretty as people once think it was.
No, yeah, it's true. I mean, London still has its issues right now to this day, right? And I don't know. I'm just so grateful that we moved to Wales. The reason we moved was my older sister got married, and her husband was living in Newport, and there were a lot of people from the village where we're from in Bangladesh who live in Newport. So it was easier, I would say, to kind of just make that move. My father found it more comfortable. He had friends and family here. More like the village people who are like an extended family. If you know anything about kind of village life, and stuff like that. So yeah, so it's and Wales. Wales. I don't know. My experience of Wales has been very positive. I went the primary school I went to. I'm still friends with the people that I went to in that primary school.
Alhamdulillah. And in terms of your schooling there, at what point was it that you kind of had this realization, or you decided that you wanted to go into design, or you had this creative element that you said you may have got from your mother's side of the family?
So growing up, I did struggle academically. I struggled in school, and later on in university, actually, I found out that I'm dyslexic. So when I found out I'm dyslexic, that made complete sense why kind of reading was always difficult, spelling was always difficult. It just made sense. And to be honest, when I found out that I was dyslexic, I was able to kind of almost put that side of my past to one side and move forward really fast and really, 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 successfully. I think creativity has always been the thing that has that kept me going, that kept me kind of like not stand out from the rest, but like I always had a feeling that okay, I'm quite good at something. I never really intended to go to never had that the mindset that this is it, this is what I'm going to do as my career. I just enjoyed doing it. I remember in primary school, I drew this sports car, and I still remember it today. It was like this red sports car, and the teacher held it up to all the students in the class, and I remember everyone saying, "Wow, that's really good," and I remember feeling, wow, actually, like it's almost like I feel like I achieved something, and that was in primary school. I kept that going throughout high school. GCSE, I knew at GCSE level. Again, I just didn't think that I was going to be doing as a career, but I remember doing my GCSE painting. And my one of the teachers, the art teachers, actually bought the painting. She bought the painting, and I still remember it. And she was like, "No, I want this painting. I'm going to pay for this painting." I was like, "Oh, wow, that's quite amazing, to be honest." And then and then I kind of like I messed up my A levels. But I chose the wrong A levels, right? So,
Yeah.
advice to kind of parents pushing their children into a career path: just ask them what they enjoy doing, right? I mean, I always. So I don't know if you know, but I'm also a secondary school teacher now. So I've been a teacher for about a decade, teaching design technology. So one of the advice I give to all the students who want to choose what GCSEs they want to do or what A levels they would like to do, I always say choose something that you really enjoy doing. Because if you enjoy doing it, then you're going to be doing it, without realizing it's work. So I chose kind of the wrong A levels for my, but I still chose art. Art was one of the A levels that I chose, and it was the only one that I passed. And then from that, I went on to a diploma in art and design, and I excelled at the diploma level. And then I went on to my degree, and alhamdulillah, I excelled in my degree. And it was mainly due to the fact that I was enjoying what I was doing.
Yeah.
And it
I
was
think
very much.
a lot of people that there has to be that passion element, in what they're doing to really give them that drive to go, to another level sometimes. And I think, one takeaway from what you were just saying, brother, is that maybe, despite having not done so well academically, you had that kind of determination that even though you did your diploma, you did something you enjoyed, and that kind of gave you the drive to complete your degree as well.
Definitely.
So I mean, it's kind of like don't give up if you do get hit by kind of a hurdle in life. And so from then your degree, you finished your degree in product design, is that correct?
That's right. It was actually, the degree was in fashion design.
Okay.
Not many people know this, but I chose fashion design, and it was, for me, it was more about it was more product design. It was more like garment design as opposed to following
Yeah.
trends and fashion, right? So when I got into the course, I started looking at kind of things like remote control hoods, and
Yeah.
things like kind of high performance wear. So clothing that you would wear for multiple reasons. So my final year degree was actually on clothing that was designed for the traveler, the nomad, somebody who was traveling from just the normal kind of environment of being outside in the UK to kind of maybe the underground. So you're moving from one climate to another, and somebody who would have to kind of carry certain kind of things and items and stuff, and how would they carry them in the most efficient way while they're traveling. So it was really good because alhamdulillah, I don't know, at that later stage in my life, I was looking into Islam a lot, and I was connecting everything back to Islam. And I designed these jackets that was shaped like a hijab. So the folds of the hijab were actually a hood. So and I was looking at that. I was looking at kind of my background from being from Bangladesh. So I was looking at clothing that was from Bangladesh. My dissertation was on actually the hijab. The actual my 10,000 word dissertation was on the hijab. And at that time, so the imagery, the kind of cover picture of my dissertation was France banning the hijab, because France banned the hijab at that time, and it was the Twin Towers, because 9/11 happened at that time, and it was and Afghanistan was happening at that time, so you had a different kind of a veil, and hijab, and it was kind of like making sense of all of that, all of those issues. And hijab is, I don't know, it's always been a topic, and it was really strange. I guess it's strange for a Muslim guy to look into it, but I was looking into it more from the kind of what is my religious perspective, and then the perspective of kind of what does kind of post-colonialism,
Yeah.
postmodernism.
I guess to some extent,
Yeah.
you know, someone coming from a Muslim background, it's something that's almost quite like normal to you and whatever. But then to some extent in the society in the UK, it's seen as kind of like this very foreign, alien thing. So, you know, it can be quite an interesting perspective that you can bring to the society.
Yeah, for sure, right? I mean, like, yeah, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I mean, it is, you know, you know, there's so you read about these things, and it's, and you think, oh my God, do they really think it's this and it's that, you know? Yeah, it was good for me to come out and have my perspective on it. And alhamdulillah, I got first class honors. So the actual
Mashallah.
my dissertation, so whoever gets the first, the dissertation then goes onto the library, in the library, stays in the library.
Yeah.
So I was happy to contribute to hopefully some other people have picked it up and read it and stuff. So
Fantastic. And I mean, you kind of touched on this, but, you know, also as a secondary school teacher, we kind of mentioned it a bit, you know, that people should go with kind of what they love. But what kind of main advice? Because I know at the time when people are kind of leaving secondary school, about to enter into university, it can be very difficult in terms of pressure from parents. What do they want you to do? And also sometimes I find that at 17, 18, you don't really know what you want to do for the rest of your life. You don't really necessarily know what you want as a career or what you want to do. And so what would be your kind of main advice to specifically, you know, Muslim youth who are that kind of age?
yeah, you know, it's really difficult because like between girls and boys, it's different again, right? So girls can multitask, and they're usually pretty good at GCSE level, whereas boys find it a lot more difficult to multitask, but they're better at kind of degree level. So, but at the same time, like there's different kind of family setups, right? So you've got family setups where they've got siblings that have gone to university, but you've got family setups where there's been no siblings going to university. So it's like they don't know the route or the path. My advice, and I always come back to this, is as a parent, you have to kind of communicate with your child and find out kind of what are they interested in, what do they like, you know, what do they do without even you having to ask them to do. And obviously, sometimes it might not be, you know, it might not be an area that they would like. For example, everybody likes playing computer games, but it's not always an area that you want to go and actually design a computer game, right? So, so it's a bit difficult, but you know, you have to look at kind of what skills do they have, and how can you then apply those skills in those certain areas. So, for example, somebody might be good at maths, but it doesn't mean they want to do maths, but they're good at like kind of understanding dates, but then history might be the subject they want to go into. And I think what we find in certain communities, and I don't want to kind of like say all communities are like that, but there's certain subjects that are always like, you know, my child's going to become a doctor or a lawyer or this and that. So like history and geography and art and you know, and like I don't know, like graphic design and product design. These are kind of subjects that are always kind of like not kind of at the forefront of a parent's mind. But I seriously think it's so important to have, you know, Muslim kids who have a variety of skills. They're not just doctors, they're not just lawyers, but they are kind of engineers, and they are artists, and they are graphic designers, and they are product designers. Because my philosophy, my kind of understanding is that work is worship, right? Work is worship. And I always believe that any kind of work can be worship, right? Any kind of work. You have to have the right intention for it to be worship. Going into school every day, my intention was that I'm going to help these children become better people. And I'm going to I'll try my best to be the best Muslim teacher role model that they can see, and then they will have a different perspective of what Muslim teachers are like, or Muslim people are like. So and that to me, with that intention, I could walk into work every day, and it's a form of worship for me, a form of dawah. So I feel like any kind of job that people do is a form of worship, can be a form of worship. So I'm kind of a big kind of respect of all subjects and all kind of disciplines to follow.
I think the main point in there is that, you know, if everyone were lawyers and doctors, I mean, you couldn't have a fully functioning society just made up of lawyers and doctors. You would need so many other people in other different roles, you know, and obviously, if you look in the Muslim countries as well, whether it's Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Bangladesh, obviously in order to have the society functioning, you have to have engineers, you have to have product designers, you have to have all of these different people in order to create the society. And I think sometimes it's a bit of a throwback to kind of the old world in a you know, a sense, in terms of, you know, doctors and lawyers and these kind of professions. Now, actually, if we look at the modern world, kind of certain jobs in terms of tech, in terms of product design, in terms of these things are actually almost, you know, more guaranteed to give you success than necessarily being a lawyer, for example. So I think that's quite interesting. But so, brother, after now you completed your degree, what was your journey then into actually creating your own business and entrepreneurship? Were you did you go out of your degree and start working a job, or were you ever why did you decide to create your own business rather than, you know, go and work for a larger company and just, you know, be a product designer for a company, etc., like this? What was the thing that kind of sparked your journey into being a business owner?
I'm not too sure, to be honest, but I mean, the lots of things. I just kind of like, I would say, just rolled with life a little bit. I left my degree and I didn't have a job. I didn't have a job lined up or anything. I didn't even concentrate on that because I was just concentrating on getting the best degree that I can get. And when I left university, the community that I'm from in Newport, it's quite a deprived community where I grew up, and there's lots of issues. You know, there's the issues around drugs and alcohol abuse, and there's lots of these kind of like issues in this area. And I didn't see any of it for like 3 years because I would leave my home, get into my car, go to university, which was this, you know, multi-million-dollar building, and then, you know, get back in my car, go home, and that was it. That was my life for 3 years. So I didn't see any of this. But when I left university, I started walking around the area and I started seeing these issues. And there was a community organization called Communities First, and I volunteered. I started volunteering. I started working with them, and I started working with some young people in the community. They weren't always Muslim, but there were some young people in the community that were going in the wrong path. And kind of what I wanted to do is I wanted to give them like some skills. So we did like a filmmaking course, and we did kind of like more creative related things. And I did that for about 6 months, completely kind of immersing myself into the community. And then there was an opportunity. It's really funny, but there was an opportunity for in that area. There was a building that was up for rent, and my family members and we saw the opportunity of possibly opening up like a takeaway, and it was my first kind of like opportunity to gain a lot of experience and skills that I didn't get from university, right? So here I was able to kind of, you know, develop a building, look at all the kind of, you know, things that I would need for setting up a takeaway. We ended up making a fried chicken place, and I had to learn about kind of health and safety. I had to learn about the construction of the building and customer service, and I designed the menu. I designed the graphics for the building, and I did it all. I did it all from kind of start to finish, and it really gave me that kind of hands-on experience of developing a physical business, right? Because a lot of businesses now are online, and this was like a hands-on physical business. We ran it for about 6 months. I left it in the hands of my family, and I then started my master's. I did a master's in product design. So the master's in product design was it was an amazing course, and I chose that course specifically because it would take an idea. So you would come up with an idea all the way through to production. So you would have and sales. So you would come up with the idea, you would develop it, you would prototype it, you would design it, you would then look at manufacturing, look at branding, look at marketing, and then look at sales. And I did the whole thing. I actually traveled to China for manufacturing my products for the masters, right? So I made a range of backpacks. And the backpacks were designed around somebody who had possibly had like bad back pain. So how can we like take away the pressure of holding this backpack and looking at all of the kind of criteria around that. And the company was called Conscious 7, and it was really fun and exciting, and it was amazing. So I literally took an idea all the way to production, and then I did like this massive U-turn, and I started a PGCE in becoming a teacher. Yeah. And I think that was probably because the experience I had at when I did the volunteering work with the kids, I really enjoyed kind of helping children and helping youth. And I wanted to do it more in a formal way. So I did the PGCE, and then I got my PGCE. I traveled to Birmingham and lived in Birmingham for 2 years. And I got my NQT and my QTS status. And that was amazing in itself as well, working in a school, in a very big school in Birmingham. And there were lots of Muslim teachers as well. So it's the first time that I've come across lots of Muslim teachers, lots of Muslim students. Newport is a small town. There aren't that many Muslims, so it was like this experience of being part of a bigger Muslim community, and I think it did shape me a lot.
Fantastic. And along that journey, when you then started going into teaching, were you still kind of attempting or trying to do your products alongside that as well? Was that something that you always did, like with the teaching? And if so, how did you juggle the two? Yeah, I mean,
so I set up Hajj Safe. And I set up Hajj Safe with a friend initially. So a friend of mine phoned me one day, and this was I just started my teaching position in Birmingham, and he phoned me one day and he said one of my relatives was in Mecca, and they had their bag cut and all of their belongings went missing, right? So these kind of things, it's unbelievable to think, but there's issues in all parts of the world, and it was kind of shocking. And he asked me the question, "Is there a solution for this?" And it just made me start thinking, and I started looking into. It was the first time I started looking into the Muslim market, right? Going into the Muslim shops and seeing what's there and what's available, and seeing how we can solve this problem about somebody taking a belt, which they will carry like a waist bag, which they will carry their phone and a mobile phone and their money and etc. inside, and how we can make that better. So when I started looking into it, I was really shocked to find that the only things that were available in these kind of Islamic stores, or majority of the stuff, were very cheap, were really poorly made, and they didn't really kind of answer all the kind of requirements for the person traveling for Hajj or Umrah. And I ended up making an anti-theft ihram belt, but it's anti-theft because it's got wire reinforced within the strap, so nobody can cut the strap. And but really, my mission was at that time to make a belt that was really durable, really strong, and really of high quality. And I was like, why, as Muslims, shouldn't we have products that are made to a high quality? Why do we not? Why are they always cheap and flimsy and really poorly made? So I started designing that a lot, along with while I was teaching, and the way I managed it was it just takes time. So with it, instead of like having it designed and developed within 6 months, it took 2 years, and I just kept going. I just love designing and solving problems, and I just wanted to keep going, and I always keep going until I get it to the prototype. And there's lots of things that I got it to the prototype, but never really went to production. Because sometimes you realize, going to production isn't always the best answer for this, because the market isn't ready, or there isn't going to be enough people who are going to buy this. Therefore, it's not going to be, at the end of the day, you need it to sell to make your money back so that you can reinvest it and make more things. So I left.
So it's not
Birmingham.
always about just having a fantastic idea. You have your patience, you develop it, but then also you need to have that level of research to make sure that actually it's going to be worthwhile in the end.
100%. And it's not always about designing something to make lots of money, right? I mean, this is my thing. Like, I do not start things because it's money related, because money doesn't motivate me, and it motivates people to a certain point, but then there's no long-term vision for it. When money, in my opinion, when money is involved, you're looking at making something, selling it, making money, and that's it. And if it sells really well, you buy more, whatever. But for me, it's always been a long-term vision, and my long-term vision has always been, from my perspective of Islam, it's always been, what can I do that will help me in this life and the next, right? And that's the most important thing for me in anything that I do, because I don't want to just do something because it's, everything takes time, everything takes money, and time is short, right? Time is short. So, what are you going to be doing? How are you going to use your time so that it benefits you in this life and the next? Because we have to think about the next life. And if we don't think about the next life, then this life is not going to be fruitful either, because it's going to be like mindless stuff. I want this, and I want this car, I want this flashy, jewelry. It's always going to be this kind of materialistic, mindless things that's not going to even bring you happiness in this life, right? So I remember clearly, I had the prototype, and Allah is the best of planners, right? Allah is the best of planners. I remember when I got married in 2008, and me and my wife both said we wanted to do Hajj. We wanted to do it early. We wanted to do it early in our marriage. And we planned it almost from the day we got married, and it took us 2 years. So 2 years, and we're leaving Birmingham now. And we're coming back to Wales, back to Newport. And we made the plan that we were going to do Hajj that year, because we weren't going to work. We left our jobs, and we perfect opportunity to do Hajj. And guess what? The belt, the anti-theft belt that I was developing, just got ready.
Yeah.
And sorry, I thought you froze there. Just got ready. I had it in my hands. And I literally put it on the day I left for Hajj, and I took it off the day I came back. And I thought to myself, this belt was so useful for me, and inshallah it will be useful for many other people. And I loved Hajj that much. I loved it that much that I wanted to stay within that vibe of Hajj. I don't know if you met anybody, or you meet people who go for Hajj, or you meet people who have just come back from Hajj. There's such an aura around these people, and alhamdulillah, I had the opportunity to have that aura around me. And there's such an aura around the people who are going for Hajj or coming back from Hajj, and I wanted to stay within that aura. I wanted to stay within that industry, and I wanted to be part of serving the guests of Allah. I wanted to help the guests of Allah. And I wasn't working full time at that time. I was just doing supply work. I was back in Newport, went for the first production, made 1,000 products. And it was really late in the time for Hajj. It came 2 weeks before people are leaving for Hajj in the UK. So 2 weeks before it arrived, me and my friend, the friend that I first met when I came to Newport, right? When I was 8 years old, me and him like literally packed up my car full of these bags, full of these anti-ihram belts. We went around the UK, went to Leicester. Leicester's a beautiful place, by the way. I love Leicester. The people over there are amazing. Went to Leicester, went to Birmingham, went to London, went to Derby, went to all Blackburn, went all around the UK, selling within 2 weeks. All of the products were sold. The retailers absolutely loved it. People were craving for something that was of high quality, something that would protect it. And at that time, you know, everybody had a smartphone. People take loads of money with them as well. So alhamdulillah, that was the start of my journey with Hajj Safe. And it was an amazing start.
It's such a needed product as well. I've been blessed to make Hajj a few times, alhamdulillah. And it's one of those things where because of the garments that you're wearing during Hajj, because of, you know, the amount of moving that you're doing, and you don't really want a big bag or something like this, it's important. And also just because there's so many people, and, you know, sometimes as well there's people that are maybe there for the wrong intentions. You know, obviously you have a lot of people who are there for the right intentions, but we know as a Muslim we need to constantly guard ourselves from, you know, the actions of the devil wherever we are. You know, even if we're in the masjid, even if we're anywhere, we always seek refuge in Allah from shaitan. So you know, sometimes these things are important. And like you said, you know, there's poverty, there's different things all over the world. When you have a gathering of millions of people, unfortunately, some people aren't thinking about the afterlife. Some people are just thinking about, okay, there's millions of people there, I can get money, whether it's by business, which could be in a permissible way, it could be a form of worship, or whether it's by some kind of haram way, or you know, by stealing or things like this. So, you know, it's a product that's always needed. And I think in Hajj is one of those things as well, that there's so many opportunities for people to make a fantastic product that could enhance the Hajj experience. And at the same time, it doesn't have to be considerably expensive or considerably luxurious, because there's just such a massive amount of Muslims who are coming to this great gathering, that, you know, even if you were just to make a small product that, you know, 500,000 people at Hajj needed, I mean, you could make a pound on every product or whatever, and it would be worthwhile. And so from that Hajj Safe, that kind of, it seems like that was that your kind of first successful product that you saw success in?
Yeah, I mean, it was successful for many reasons, right? I mean, Hajj Safe was a very difficult business when you look at the business side of things, because it was very seasonal. We would literally make, you know, 80% of the turnover within 2 or 3 months of that Hajj period. So in terms of a business, very difficult to run. But it was successful in the sense that I had now developed a product that I was really happy with. It was for Muslims, it was for people going for Hajj, and I was now within this pillar of Islam. And for me, that was a massive success, right? So although it wasn't making so much money, I still had to work full time. I still had a full-time job. But for me, it was just so beautiful just to be within this environment. And it was growing every year. Year on year, it was growing. In terms of sales, in terms of like, I was developing more products. I was developing products for women now, and I'm developing like shoe bags to put your shoes in, and stone bags to carry your stones for the jamarat. So there was lots of different things, and it was really getting me creative. And again, it was just beautiful because I knew I was developing something that was far greater than money, right? It was something that was making me happy in this life, but it's also hopefully, inshallah, something that's going to benefit me in the next life. And, you know,
I saw you were you were doing, sorry, was it related as well? That I saw that you did some products with some airlines as well. Was it
Yes.
Turkish
Yeah.
Airlines and stuff?
Yeah.
Was that tied into the Hajj Safe company, or
Yeah.
was that a separate
Yeah.
venture?
No, that was tied in because Turkish Airlines at that time were going to give all of their travelers an amenity kit, something that had like a bag and a little travel prayer mat and things like that. And they loved my Hajj Safe brand. And they loved the concept and the story behind it. And they wanted to have cosmetics, so they wanted to have some unscented liquid soaps, and they then also had an unscented moisturizer. So they wanted to put a logo on there. So I then sold the royalty rights of Hajj Safe logo to be used on the products. So I got a small royalty from it, but I was just enjoying working with some of these huge companies and some of these, having. They produced something like 100,000 bottles every year for the pilgrims. So I was like, my brand is going to be seen by 100,000 people every year, and I'm happy for that to happen. And if I'm going to get a small little amount of royalty for it, I'm more than happy as well, right?
Yeah.
So it was really
definitely
fun, actually. And I just kept it going because we had some incredible things happen. Whenever somebody whenever somebody bought our product, and if I had a communication with them at some point, I would always say, please make dua for us. When you're in front of the Kaaba, make dua for us. And some of these people would send like a picture of them in front of the Kaaba with our Hajj Safe bag. It's like, bro, I'm in front of the Kaaba, I've got your bag, and I'm making dua for you. And I'm like, wow, you can't pay for things like that, and that would happen year on year. Somebody would do that. We'd have friends and family who would go for Hajj, and we'd be able to gift them these products. So it was really nice. It was really, really good.
MashaAllah. And obviously sometimes it can be easy, for people, especially when they're thinking about getting into business, to see, that there's only been success, and look, mashallah, Allahumma barik, this person, he's so successful and this, that, whatever. But could you maybe give us an insight along your journey into something that you'd maybe consider one of your biggest failures, and how you kind of dealt with that?
I think there's failures kind of all the time, right? One of the things I say to my wife all the time is I worry about my son. I worry that because he finds kind of failure difficult, and for me, it's like failure is part of life, right? So you do things and you fail it, and the Islamic perspective here is beautiful, right? Because it's never failure, right? Because it's always that wasn't meant to be for you, or there's something better for you, or that's gonna come, but just wait a little bit, right? So for me, that perspective has always been there for me. So for me, it's very difficult to point out failures because of that strong belief that I have that, I tried this and I didn't work, but that's not failure, because Allah didn't want that to happen for me, and I'm going to move forward, and Allah's got something better for me. So I always try and keep that perspective, but I understand what you mean, right? I completely understand what you mean. And there's been so many things. So like when we set up Hajj Safe, one of the things that we did, I got really inspired, and I developed loads of these different products. And I think that was, for me, that was not the best decision to make. I think what I should have done was I should have concentrated on a couple of items and taken them forward, concentrated on them and really making sure that they were everywhere, that they were in UK, America, Australia, all of these, Middle East, all of these countries. But because I had lots of products, it became difficult in terms of production. I was producing more. I had to invest more money. I had to sell more of these products. So it was just and then customers, the world is a very noisy place. So you have to be very clear about what you're selling or what you're doing. And it became a bit diluted, because the unique thing about Hajj Safe was that the anti-theft Ihram belt. And then it became all of these other products. But I learned from that. The thing is, I learned from that. So when I developed my Salah Mat, the world's first interactive prayer mat, so many different ideas came out of that, but I didn't do them I didn't follow them. I was like, I got one product, and literally for 4 years, I concentrated on this one product. And
Mashallah.
everybody was like, "You got this big brand now. Why don't you get this other stuff and put your brand on there and you can sell it?" I'm like, that's not what, experience tells me that's not the way. You've got this one amazing product. Let people understand the product. Let people enjoy the product. Let it be everywhere. And that's what we did for 4 years. We just concentrated on this one product. And also, like a lesson that I learned was that, like, it's amazing because, if I had followed money, for example, with Hajj Safe, if I just said, like, I want to make money from this, right? And I just followed money, like, I would have stopped Hajj Safe because it wasn't making money, right? It wasn't making enough money. I would have just stopped Hajj Safe. But if I had stopped Hajj Safe, I would have failed, because what I was gaining from Hajj Safe wasn't money, but it was the contacts that I was making. I had contacts with so many companies in the UK, so many companies abroad. They all loved the product. They all loved the kind of the way I was working with them, the way I was dealing with them. A lot of them became close friends. I could just text them and ask them questions, because they were Muslims, and I was in this. I was treated like I was behaving like they're my brother, they're my sister. I'm going to be nice to them. I'm going to be honorable. I'm going to give them a good price. I'm going to not cheat them. I'm not going to. So that was what I did with Hajj Safe for about 4 or 5 years. And I built up all of this really loyal base. So when I brought out my Salah Mat, instead of recreating that base that I had created for 5 years, I was able to take my Salah Mat to all of these stores I had worked with, and they all purchased the product. They all loved the product. They all purchased it. They all supported me. Whether they thought that they was going to do really well or not, they were like, "Look, Kamal, I'm going to try this because it's you,"
Yeah.
And that was the reason why my Salah Mat became such a hit straight away, because I was able to use all of those contacts that I built up. And that's an amazing lesson in life, that when you have these opportunities, don't spoil them just because you're not making money from it or whatever. Continue on, because you don't know what's happening down the road. You don't know what's in your path, right? You don't know what Allah's got ready for you. And my Salah Mat came out of nowhere as well.
Yeah. What was the spark that kind of, made you've done all this stuff with Hajj, and then what was the thing where you were like, wow, I need to create this? Where did this product idea come from?
It came out of nowhere. Like, literally, like, I was praying one day and my son was young and he was joining me in the prayer. And within my prayer, I noticed in the corner of my eye that he was struggling to do sujood. So he was struggling to put his hand, his nose, his knees, and his feet together. He was just like lying flat. And I was like, okay, I'm going to show you how to do sujood. So after I finished prayer, I tried to show him, and again, he was struggling. But as a product designer, I knew what I wanted. I wanted a prayer mat that had hand prints and nose prints and feet prints, and I knew he would get it straight away. And I looked online, and there was nothing available. There was nothing there. I was like, hold on, wait 1 second. This is the most basic thing. And then because from Hajj Safe I had those links with the manufacturers, because I had already developed products, I already had the experience of developing products, I put this design together really quickly. Within a day, within a few hours, the design was ready. But then the whole production, manufacturing, processing, all of that took ages. There's 2 stages to it. The first stage was, I thought it was just going to be a print. But when I received the print, because I added words like Allahu Akbar, Subhana Rabbi Allah, what you would say within the prayer. And then I thought, you know what? These words, instead of them just being words on the prayer mat, they could actually become buttons, and you can push it and hear it. So then they started the second stage of the design process, design development. I had to get voiceover actors and artists and different translations. I wanted it in different countries because I wanted people from all over the world to enjoy it. So design process took about 2 years, but I launched it. I had a website, I had made a video, did the whole thing with a small little team of people, with freelancers and things like that. We did the whole thing and launched the prayer mat, and alhamdulillah, like, it kicked off. Like, people, like, the Muslim community were longing for something that would help their children, not just learn Salah, because this is what I always say to people. although it'll teach them how to do salah, it'll invite them to salah. It'll attract them to salah. It'll make them want to do salah. It'll inspire the love of salah, and that's the beauty of the prayer mat, the interactive prayer mat.
And I think one of the amazing things is then off the back of the My Salah Mat, which kind of for you was like, you know, kind of almost a personal thing in terms of, you know, you starting off helping your son, and then you realize this obviously is something that all Muslim parents are going to be able to benefit from. But then off the back of that became the, you know, My Salah Mat for the converts to Islam, for them to an adult version of the mat as well, which I think as a convert myself, you know, is a fantastic, you know, product that is so needed. When I actually first learned how to pray, I learned from YouTube. And then, you know, I'd learn how to pray from a video on YouTube. And then sometimes I would come and I'd pray with a couple of Muslim friends that I had, and they'd kind of, oh, you know, you need to do this or you need to do that. And so, you know, it can be quite difficult as well as a new Muslim. So when was the convert mat developed?
So we developed that, we launched it in May this year, 2022.
MashaAllah.
But we started developing it 2 years before, and it was during it was just before the pandemic, the COVID pandemic happened, and we started developing it. And again, we had so many requests on our social media platforms. Everyone was like, make an adult version, make an adult version. And for me, I was just trying to work out like, why should I do this, right? I wanted to understand my intentions behind it. Like, was it because like people were asking for it, therefore I can sell it, therefore I can make money? And I was like, that's not enough for me. And it really wasn't. It was for ages people were asking us. And again, I wanted to really make sure that I got the foundations right for My Salah Mat, the kids version. I wanted to make sure that foundation was right. So I remember one day I was in the office. I was with my small team, and Asim and Alex were there, and they were both like, look, you gotta make this adult version. And they were talking amongst them, and I remember like zoning out, and I remember having this vision in my head. I could see this vision. I was in the office, I couldn't hear anything around me, and I could see this vision. And this vision was, I could see somebody taking their shahada, and the imam has just said the shahada, they've just taken the shahada, everybody's happy, the imam gives them a hug, and everybody else gives them a hug. And then he's presented with this whole load of books. And I'm thinking in my head, how long is it going to take him to go and pray? How long is it going to take him to learn how to pray? And I thought, you know, if I can invent or develop something that would help this person pray from the day they take the shahada, and just listen to the ayahs, just listen to the Quran and recitation, just do the actions, that would be enough to keep them inspired and keep them kind of, you know, connected with Allah. And I thought, that's why I want to do it. This is the reason. And really, literally was for that reason. When we launched the adult prayer mat, we found that it wasn't just for reverts. A lot of born Muslims need this. People who learned as a young child and didn't pray and forgot and need to come back, too embarrassed to go and ask somebody. And they just longing, people are longing for this, and they can do it in the comfort of their homes. And, you know, and we realized the market was way bigger than what we thought it was. We were supported. We had so many of these stories that you just said, telling us that I learned from YouTube, I learned from loads of pieces of paper, and I learned like this. And then we had people telling us that there are lots of people who revert to Islam and they actually go back to not being Muslim because it's so hard. And I'm like, you know, it would be hard, and if they're not connecting with Allah, they're not hearing the beautiful recitation of the Quran, they're gonna be disconnected, right? So for me, it's probably one of the best things that we've done, and it was a real team effort as well to get this to the product launch. And again, it was an instant, and immediately people wanted it and loved it.
Yeah, mashallah. I think like you said, is that almost like, you know, for some people, maybe born Muslim, older Muslims, like you said, they might be embarrassed. But then also in terms of the converts as well, I even myself know many people who've kind of it's almost like it's just so daunting, the amount of things that they have to learn in the beginning, and you know, they maybe they don't have the best support in terms of you know, people around them, because obviously they've jumped into you know, the faith, and they come from a background where they don't have family, they don't have a Muslim support system, and so anything that we can do as a Muslim community that can make that easier, I think is always going to be a benefit. And in the end of the day, it's going to help, especially when it comes to the pillars of Islam. I know from my journey to Islam as well, that, you know, just always being upon the salah and being firm upon the salah, even though, you know, obviously there were other things I was doing before as Muslim, and those things take time and patience. But the fact that I was always having that daily connection to Allah with the salah, I think is really, really important. And so that's, you know, Jazakallah khair. That product, I think, is really, really going to be beneficial for so many people. The next question I had, Kamal, what is kind of one advice that you would give? Let's say we've got a young entrepreneur, or maybe even an older entrepreneur. He has a product or an idea that he really wants to produce. What would be your main advice to someone kind of starting out? They have a 9-to-5, they don't come from an entrepreneurial background. What would be the advice you would give to them?
First of all, I would say to them to really ask themselves why are they doing it. Okay, so like really ask themselves why are they doing it, because the road ahead is long, right? The road ahead is long. It can feel long or it could feel joyful, and it all depends on your perspective or the reason, your intention behind doing what you're doing. If the reason for it is, you know, for me, if it's a very difficult product that you think if it's going to be a difficult product, then your intentions have to be even stronger, right? But look, let's say they've got this idea and they want to kind of develop it and take it forward. Research is key. So go online and see what else is out there that's similar. Let's say there's nothing similar out there. Research into the kind of audience or the market that you're making it for. Is it something that they need? Is it something that they would want? Is it something that they would buy? If it is, then how much would they pay for that item? So you then research into manufacturing, right? How much will it cost you to make? So if it costs you, you know, there's a rule in manufacturing. If it costs you $1 to make something, you have to sell it for 4 times the amount. To sell it for $4. You don't have to, but that way you can go through the whole production process. You can go from, you know, from manufacturer to distributor to wholesaler to retailer to customer, right? But then, and we didn't do it like that because it would be far too expensive. So you have to be then happy to take smaller percentages in profits and things like that in what you're making. So sometimes you can go straight from production to customer because you can sell it through your website. Is that the route that you want to take? So work out your cost. Once you work out your cost, once you work out what your retail price is, ask yourself, are the customers going to pay for this? Majority of the times, a lot of people will pay for anything, right? Because there's watches out there for £10, but there's watches out there for £10,000, and there's watches out there for £1 million, right? So it really depends on your customer that you're making it for. But you also have to show the value of the product. You have to communicate why is it priced a certain amount. And it's usually down to the quality of product that you're using, materials that you're using, the amount of money that you're spending on marketing, the development costs. So it's usually down to all of those kind of things, and you build up value into it. But it's a really difficult question to answer. I think I've gone from like all over the place. I think I've confused your viewers a lot more than giving them kind of a pathway. But really, I think the answer then is there is no pathway. You do research and you ask questions. Be open to show the product to people. Not everyone, but be open to show the product to. You can get people to sign NDAs, you know, non-disclosure performs, and then show them like, I got this product. You know, is this something
how much in terms of showing to the product to maybe family and friends? I mean, is that something that you do? Do you get, you know, helpful feedback by doing things like this as well?
So, yeah, I mean, I do. I mean, if you've developed something for a child, it really honestly is a good idea to show the child, do you think this would be good? Even your mock-up designs, right? Even the mock-up designs, if you can see kids are excited over your mock-up design, because at the end of the day, they might be, you know, kids love scrolling through catalogs and things like that and picking out toys, right? So if they're going through your design and they love it, then that's a hint for you to say, yeah, actually, I'm onto something. And yeah, definitely show your target audience, like without them even realizing.
Sure.
But sometimes, like, the feedback that you get from people isn't always the feedback that you want, or isn't always true, right? So you might show somebody and be like, oh, I've got this product, and they might look at it and be like, oh yeah, but I'll never buy it. But they will buy it. They'll buy it because they saw their friend buying it, and they saw their friend using it, and then they realize actually it's a great product and I actually want it. So like there's a famous thing, isn't it, from Dyson? I'll never forget. Dyson never did research because they said if you ask somebody, I've got a vacuum cleaner where you can see your dirt, do you want it? They'd all say no, I don't want to see the dirt, right? But all the vacuum cleaners now show the dirt, right? Everybody wants a vacuum cleaner where you can see the dirt inside. But if you ask somebody, like, do you want to see the dirt? They'll say no, right? So it's not, people don't always, and people don't always know what they want, right? They don't always know what they want.
And people always don't necessarily know what's good for them as well. Like in terms of, you know, the mass, I mean, that's sometimes where it's like, you know, we, especially in terms of Islam, we value the expert's opinion rather than just like the mass. So I mean, there's an element of like you said, look at your product group, or look at your market or your audience, or people who might buy, or maybe even perhaps sign some NDAs with some experts and talk to them. Because like you said, if you go and do like mass market research on the masses, people might say, nah, we don't want this and this, that, whatever. But actually they don't realize that once they actually see the benefits of a particular product, they might be like, oh, wow, yeah, I actually need this. So I better get this in my life.
Definitely. I mean, even to this day, sometimes we'll get somebody who'll say, oh, I don't, you know, why do I need an interactive kids prayer mat? And I'm like, okay, do you have children? Like, no. Well, that's why you don't know why you need an interactive kids prayer mat, right? Because you don't have children. Like, the minute you have children, you'll realize. You know. So yeah,
it's crazy. Just on that point, you know, we're here based in Saudi Arabia, in Mecca, alhamdulillah. My wife we were going back to the UK. We were looking for you know, a product for one of my wife's nieces who has, you know, some learning disabilities, and we found my Salah Mat before I ever had contacted you or anything. I knew that it was produced in Wales, picked up my Salah Mat in Mecca, and then gifted it to her in Leicester. And actually, I think her sister saw it and then wanted one as well. And like, it's one of those things that kids see it and then they realize like, oh, I really want this as well. And you know, it makes it easier. So.
And isn't that beautiful, right? Isn't that beautiful? I mean, that to me just keeps me going. I mean, isn't that beautiful that a child wants a prayer mat? Like, a child wants to pray, right? Isn't that beautiful? Like, that to me is the kind of like the pinnacle of success. Like that, like the product, like Allah's blessed that. Like that's success. When you get a child. And then the whole thing started because I thought, if I can help one child benefit from it, and now, alhamdulillah, thousands of children are able to benefit from it, and they want to pray. So, alhamdulillah.
MashaAllah. Akhi, I know I've taken quite a lot of your time, brother, and you know, I'm conscious of the time. So I've got one last question for you, inshallah, before we go. So I've been asking all my guests this, whatever field or industry they're in, is basically, if you had 10 times the budget you've ever had to produce a product, or maybe to use on your existing products, what would you do?
if I had 10 times investment, I think it's a really difficult question, actually. I think there's so much I would want to do. But if I was to put that money back into my Salah Mat, I'd really love to. I'd really love to just get the product priced really low, and that, you know, that could happen with large quantities of manufacturing and working with different manufacturers even, and then be able to then support children, you know, in poorer countries, in countries where it's might become a bit expensive, and I'd love to gift these products to people, to kids.
Yeah.
I'd love to have some kind of, but not just like, because I would love to do it through a whole like kind of an educational setting. So it wouldn't be just like, oh, here's a prayer mat, but it'd be like, oh, here's a range of prayer mats, but with that you're gonna have, I don't know, a teacher that will be able to benefit all of these kids and teach them how to pray and inspire them and look at different methods and different kind of teaching styles to inspire children to love Islam and to love Salah. I think there's a gap. I think there's still a massive gap between kids learning the Quran and learning Islam and learning surahs and learning to pray and actually wanting to do it. Right? There's a massive gap. I'd love to close that gap down a little bit, and create a vibe and create an atmosphere and create a community where it's just, you know, we just are so proud and so and love Islam so much that we just want to practice it all the time, you know, create like that environment, and create a community around that where, you know, we feel that vibe during Ramadan, you know, and we want to keep that going for the rest of the year. Even the kids love fasting and they love praying together. We just want to keep that going, and keep them wanting to because my vision, really, I mean, it's a bit nuts, but my vision really is that if we can inspire the love of Salah, right? So my vision is, if we can inspire the love of Salah and children grow up wanting to pray, so they're like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, they grow up wanting to pray, and then they go to these institutions like schools, and then they go to workplaces, and they insist upon a prayer room. They insist upon kind of praying. These institutions around us will have to change. They'll have to provide prayer facilities. They'll have to provide wudu facilities. Then they go into the workplaces, and the workplaces will change. And then people around them who are not Muslim will see, oh, this person is praying, and what does that mean? And why are you praying? And, oh, okay. And then they may try it. They may want to find out more. And then what will happen then is you're changing society just from your actions.
Yeah.
Just from your actions. And you don't need to say anything, you just need to do it. And prayer, I feel, is one of those things that can really have that impact when you're living in a non-Muslim society and when you're living in a non-Muslim country. You can really have that impact, because nobody's going to diss prayer. When they see the harmony and the tranquility and the peace that this brings to children, they're going to be really happy, especially in a school setting. I know that for a fact. So that's, inshallah, that's what I would love to inspire.
Inshallah. It's an amazing vision, and yeah, it's been absolutely lovely talking to you, brother. I hope you know, may Allah give you success on all your next ventures. I was actually just discussing with my family before I came over. I said, my Salah Mat, what if he does something like my wudu tap next? So that's a free idea that you can take and maybe develop into something or not. Yeah, fantastic speaking to you. And anything else you'd like to say to the viewers listening?
No, thank you for inviting me. Thank you for very thoughtful questions and your time as well. And I look forward to how you put this together, inshallah. And it's been a pleasure, bro, honestly. And please stay in touch. I'd love to stay in touch with you and touch base with you You know,
Yeah. Well, hopefully you'll be coming for Umrah soon, inshallah. We'll see you here in Mecca or in Saudi.
Inshallah, 100%. Thank you.
Barakallah fi. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum, brother.
Life is one big road with a lot of signs, signs and more signs. You gotta make up your mind to face reality all the time. No.